Hey, thanks so much for checking out this podcast. This is podcast number 0. So, this is an introductory podcast to tell you basically about what this podcast is going to be about. So, today I'm going to start off telling you who this podcast is for. Then I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and my journey. I'm going to explain to you what the awareness revolution is. And then I want to get into some details about this particular podcast, the future of the podcast, the future episodes, and so on. So, first, let me start off by telling you who this podcast is for so that way you know if it's right for you. Obviously, if it's right for you, you're going to want to keep on listening. If not, hey, no harm done. It isn't for everyone, but who this podcast is for people who want to make a difference in the world. It's also for people who want to make a difference in their own lives. We want to be the change that we want to see in the world. So that's how we're going to change the world. We're going to start off by making changes in our own life, in our lifestyle, in the ways that we think, the way that we eat, the way that we create our habits, and things like that. Because we don't have control over everything that happens in the world, but we do have control over ourselves. So we're going to consciously take control of that, and it's like taking control of the steering wheel of a ship. We are going to guide us, we're going to guide ourselves on our journey by taking control of the ship and steering it in the direction that we want to go. And that may be different for each person. My journey has changed directions, and you don't have to take the exact path that I took. But the awareness revolution encompasses a lot. So while one person may be more interested in personal development, another person may be interested in financial gain, while another person may be interested in health. And this website, this podcast, is for all of those people, because even though these subjects seem to be unrelated, they are related. And I connect them, and that's one of the things that makes the awareness revolution unique. We don't just have a niche, we have a niche of not having a niche almost, because all these topics that I'll be covering are connected in a seemingly mysterious way. And that will make more and more sense the more that you dive into the episodes, the more that you check out my ebooks, my blog post. What I'm doing is taking the pieces of the puzzle and putting them all together. And what's shocking is that when you put the pieces of the puzzle together, you see the big picture. And the big picture is an image that you wouldn't be able to see otherwise. For example, if I showed you one piece of a puzzle, you might see an eye, and that's it. Like, oh, okay, that's an eye of something. Well, then the more pieces that you put together, you might be able to say, hey, that's an eye of a tiger. And then, you put more pieces together, and you say, oh, the tiger's in the jungle, and so on and so forth. So that's what we're going to do. And when you see all the pieces put together, you might be quite shocked. But it's going to be a great journey. It's been a great journey in my life, discovering all these things. I've been practically obsessed with learning and getting my hands on anything that I can to better myself. And then I got to a certain point where I'm like, well, I'm tired of talking to people about it and having to repeat myself over and over and over. I might as well put out this content through different forms of media, put it out there once, and then I don't have to explain it anymore. I can just direct people to that. So that's what I've done. So I've spent many years learning all this stuff, and about 8 or 9 years ago, I dedicated myself to it full time, trying to put this content out, and I only got my website up and running about a year ago, and that's after starting several websites and they just didn't work out. Finally, I'm happy with this one. We're up and running. It took me about 7 years, but I'm going to also teach internet marketing so that way if you want to play your role in the awareness revolution, you don't have to wait 7 years and struggle like I did. I want to teach people what I've learned, not only about the content like personal development, personal finance, and health, but also how to share this online to wake other people up, make them aware of it, and even make a little bit of money for themselves on the side. So if you want to improve yourself, this is the podcast for you. If you want to change the world, this is the podcast for you. If you're interested in personal development, health, making money, not only becoming wealthy but financially free, which are two totally different things. You can make a lot of money but be tied to a job, and if you're tied to a job, you're always going to have to keep on working because we need money to keep on coming in. And if we have to work to make money coming in, we're going to always be working. So we got to break free from that cycle. We got to break free from that rat race. And this is going to help you do that. And you can do it all in one. This is all encompassing where you can get healthy, be happy, live the life of your dreams, create residual income so you can travel where you want. You're not tied down to some 9 to 5, some desk. And you can work when you want, how you want, do what you want, share your passion with the world, and make a living at it. That's what I want to do, and I invite you to join me in the awareness revolution. So if that's you, keep on listening. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. See, I've always been a little bit different, and I could talk about my story forever, and if you want me to do it in detail in a future episode, let me know. You can email me about anything if you have questions for about anything that I cover or suggestions for future episodes or anything at all. You can email me at info@theawarenessrevolution.com. But I'll just give a brief intro since this is an intro podcast of myself. I've always been a little bit different. I can remember being young and looking at the nutrition labels, looking at the protein, the sugar, the vitamin C. I remember seeing 100% vitamin C is what it would say on the Kool-Aid packets when I would make Kool-Aid as a kid. And so I remember thinking Kool-Aid was healthy. I remember my first job at Burger King. I was 14 years old. I used to look at the nutrition poster for Burger King, and I would look at how much protein I was getting out of a Whopper, say. And I just was always into it, and these things, they didn't really stick out to me as odd at the time. I didn't think anything of it. But I still remember people telling me certain health tidbits when I was young, and they didn't stick out to me. I didn't know 20 years later I would still remember them, but I do. And looking back at it, it's like, well, why do I remember this health tip, this health thing from 20 years ago, or 25 years ago? And I found, once I started learning about health, I found that I just retain a very high percentage of that information. I don't know why. Some things I get just in and out of my head. But when I learn new nuggets of information, particularly regarding health, it sticks with me. I'm like a sponge. So I've just always been different. I started off being very financially motivated. That's really what started my whole journey. I didn't want to be poor. I didn't want to raise my kids where money seemed like it was so scarce. So I was always working really hard, saving, saving, saving. And one of the co-workers that I worked with when I was like 17 or 18 saw that I was driven, saw that I had a really big entrepreneurial spirit, and he wanted to show me his business model of this new business that he found. It ended up being Quickstar, which is basically like the old version of Amway. And he took me out to free lunch. I was like, free lunch, I can't pass it up. He showed me this business model where he showed me the cash flow quadrant, which was based on a book, The Cash Flow Quadrant. And it really made sense to me, resonated, and it was basically showing me that there's a system to where you can create residual income so that way your money works for you so you don't have to. And I was like, that's what I want. It's a way to get wealthy and financially free. And I was like, okay, I want to do that. I want to build businesses and invest in income, invest my income so that way I produce residual income so that way I can break free of this working my butt off at a job that I hate just to make money paycheck to paycheck. So I joined the company, and in the company came a starter kit, and in the starter kit was the Cash Flow Quadrant book. And I didn't like reading. I didn't really know why, but now I know it's because I see double. It takes a lot of concentration for me to read. So I started reading it, and I was thrilled with it. I loved the book. So I ended up reading the whole thing. I mean, I would stay up late reading it and not even go to school the next day because I didn't like school. I was always a bit of a rebel. So I stay up reading my own stuff instead of going to school. And that really kicked off my journey. Because I was financially motivated, I feel like that's what ticked me off. And after that, it led into personal development. I read other financial books, but then, of course, if you want to be successful in business, you've got to have people skills, customer skills, sales skills. So I started reading everything I could, Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Charisma, just everything. Learn about Tony Robbins, all these great inspirational, motivational speakers, Brian Tracy. I mean, I started going to the library and checking out anything that I could that looked good. And, I got into audiobooks. That was really tough at first. I couldn't really retain much. I might catch a thing or two out of an hour long talk. But I mean, I remember it was really hard, because the same guy that got me into the business, gave me the cash flow quadrant, he started giving me tapes. That's how long ago this was. And, you know, I, I don't know, I struggle with it, but I was so determined to get something from it and just to soak up any new information that I could. I just persevered. And over time, I went from not being able to retain very much from the audio that I listened to being able to follow it the whole time. And now, I follow I bring a laptop with me around the house. When I'm making lunch, I might have a laptop sitting there listening to audio. I mean, I literally carry the laptop around with me throughout the house with audio going, and I can focus and do what I'm doing and still listen at the same time because I've been doing it so much for so many years. And the combination of being able to read when my eyes have the eye power, so to speak, when I'm able to, I'll read, and when I'm not in the mood to read or I can't, I listen to audio. And I found that the combination of both, plus being on the internet, of course, watching video, has been extremely powerful because you can only fit so much in your schedule. But if you use all of them, for example, instead of watching a movie, watch a documentary. Instead of listening to music in your car, listen to an audiobook. Instead of reading fiction, read nonfiction. If you start doing that and you take advantage of all three mediums, then you can really get a lot of information in a matter of years become an expert on a particular subject. I had to learn all these different subjects because over time my area of interest would change. I started off learning about money, and then after that I went into personal development. After that, I started getting into health because, hey, that's health can even be more important than health, or more important than personal development, and more important than money. In fact, I think of everything as a subcategory of personal development. But you don't want to be the richest man in the hospital, and the more wealthy that you are, the more healthy you should want to be. So that way you can actually enjoy your wealth. If you're broke and healthy, you're just sitting there with nothing to do. But if you got a bunch of money and you're healthy, then you can do whatever you want. You'll have lots of energy to travel around, sleep less and live more, and see the world. But if you got the money and you're not in the physical condition to travel around, what's the point? And if you're wealthy, let's say if you work real hard and you become wealthy and financially free at age 50, but then you die at 60, well, you only had 10 years of living wealthy, you know? But if you become wealthy and financially free at 50 and live to be 100, which is very possible, then you get 50 years. That's 5 times as much time of your life to enjoy the fruit from your labor of working, saving, sacrificing, taking risk, gaining, losing. It can be rough. And the healthier that you are, the more that you can increase the quantity of life and the quality of life. So you get more years of life and more life in your years. So that's why I don't think that people should focus on one or the other. You shouldn't focus on health or money. You should focus on all of the above. So that's been my path. I also got into conspiracy stuff, which got me into government and all this other different topics. But your journey may take a different path than mine. So that's pretty much my journey and how I got here. Once I realized I wanted to share this with the world, I went at it full time building the websites. I've learned video production. I learned how to build my own WordPress websites. I've learned internet marketing, a little bit of SEO, search engine optimization, which is another part of internet marketing. I've really, it's really been a huge undertaking just to be able to deliver this information that I'm so passionate about to the world. And I want to teach you everything that I know. I want to teach you what it's taken me, over a decade to learn. I want to teach it to you in days or weeks or months or whatever. I want to teach it to you fast. And luckily I can. I can dramatically speed up the process of taking people from point A to point B. And in fact, my newsletter, if you go to theawarenessrevolution.com and join the revolution, sign up for our email newsletter, and you're going to get a free mini ebook, The Awareness Revolution Primer. And that's really designed to bring you up to speed quickly so you can get a good idea of what the revolution is about. You get some good recommendations on books, courses, documentaries that will really, if you ever watch some of these documentaries like Food Matters, these documentaries can change a person's life. And it doesn't cost you anything. If they're on Netflix and you have Netflix, you just watch it. Instead of watching this, you watch that. And it will teach you simple things like instead of eating this, you eat that. And by making these little decisions, they can have a big impact in your life. And that's what it's all about. The small little changes that make a big difference in your life. The way I think of it, it's like if you were to watch the average person shoot a basketball, and then you were to watch Michael Jordan shoot a basketball, and then try to explain to me what the difference is, you may not even be able to see the difference, much less articulate the difference to me. But trust me, there's a small difference that makes the world of difference. And the key is to find these little differences in life and figure out what small changes you can do that over time will make a huge difference in your life. And I specialize in information that is hidden, information that's hard to find, stuff that people don't know. So it's stuff that people aren't aware of, that they should be aware of in order to make this an optimal place for us all to live. In order to change the world, people need to know this stuff. So there's a lot of stuff out there. Thanks to the internet, we have an information revolution. The speed at which we can get information is amazing. It's faster than ever before. We've got all the information that we need, plus a million times more right there at our fingertips. And every day there's constantly new stuff being uploaded to the internet. So we're swimming in the sea of information, which is the greatest thing ever. But the problem is we're overloaded with it. There's too much of it. There's no way one person could keep up with all the stuff that's coming out, all the latest developments of this and that, the new discoveries, it's just too much. So what I'm doing is I'm spending my time full time digging through it all, finding the best of the best pieces of information and then delivering it to you, showing it to you, keeping you informed and updated. So that way you don't have to spend your full time of your life, you don't have to spend that digging through all this stuff. You can still have your full-time job, and I will deliver to you the most important pieces. Sometimes I'll search all day trying to figure out something that I could teach to someone in less than an hour. So, you know, I just encourage you to make the best investment that you can make, and that's invest in yourself. Invest in your health, invest in your knowledge, books, documentaries, websites, podcasts. That is what it's all about. And this is just the beginning for me. I promise I'm going to get better with the podcasting, with the video production, everything. I've got a lot of plans. I've got a lot of content that's going to be coming out. I've written several ebooks that I haven't published yet, plus the main book, which is going to be printed, called The Awareness Revolution. And I plan on, after all that is published, I'm going to do a documentary based on the book. So I've got a lot in store. I'm excited for you to get involved. I'm excited for you to learn what I've been so passionate about for all these years. So, if you've listened to this so far, if you're here listening right now, I just can't tell you how excited I am that I'm able to do this and that you're actually on the other end listening to me. So, I would just want to warn you that we are going to be getting into some controversial information. So, odds are you probably won't agree with everything so far. You're not going to agree with everything that I say, every post, every blog post, every podcast episode. But that's the good thing. That's a good thing. If I was doing podcasts that everyone agreed with, there wouldn't be much point in my podcast. I'm providing a worldview that people need to hear. People at least need to know that there is another voice out there, because there's only 5 or 6 huge corporations that control all of the media in the whole world. And I don't just mean the news stations. I mean the magazines, I mean the newspapers. We're talking about everything. Almost all of the media that we see is controlled really by a very small number of companies. So thankfully, the internet has made it possible to where everyone can have their voice, everyone can have their own opinion. And that's what I'm doing, is I'm providing an opinion on things that you probably won't hear in other places. And I like to give my own spin. I like to give information that you won't find in other places, so I'm not just rehashing other people's content. And that's really what this is all about. But a lot of it is controversial, so expect that. So I just ask you to listen to each podcast with an open mind. Do not judge the episodes by the title. Don't jump to conclusions. Just hear me out, because pretty much everything that I say, like for example, if I give a talk about the reasons why I don't vaccinate, just remember that at one time I did believe in vaccination. Just like everyone else, I did think that it was what they say it is. I thought that it does more harm than good. In fact, I thought they were safe and effective. It was only when I was presented with new pieces of information that I realized I was wrong, and I changed my view on it. So we all begin somewhere. We all start at a certain place, and then hopefully we continue to learn as time goes by. And if you stop learning, you stop growing. You stop growing, you start dying. So learning should never end. Learning or knowing is the enemy of learning. So we have to know that the more that we know, the more that we don't know. So just because you're hearing new information that conflicts with your current paradigm doesn't mean that it's not true. A lot of times people think, they're like, well, if that was true, I would have heard this by now. And I just want to scream from the rooftops, you're hearing it now. You're hearing it now. So, you know, that is very important because a lot of people are going to be put off by some of the topics, and you might learn it and be excited to learn it and agree with it, and then you go out and you tell someone else what you learned, and they're going to shut you down because it threatens their worldview, and people have a defense mechanism so that way they don't go crazy. They don't want to accept a lot of information that is like a 180 from what they think. Because they don't want to think that they've been duped. They don't want to think that the world is some evil place with people that are evil controlling the world and all these things. And it's understandable. It's like trying to drink through a fire hose. So I guess, my content is going to be so content rich that it is going to be for the people that do want to try to drink from the fire hose. But you do have to take it a little bit at a time. It's too much for people all at one time. What I learned took me over a decade to learn, and sometimes it was stressful dealing with some of these truths that I've uncovered. So take it bit by bit with an open mind, and I think when you come out the other end, you're going to see that you'll never see the world the way that you used to. And I'm here to facilitate that process and be like a roadmap to help guide people through this infinite amount of information on the internet and show them things the best way that I see them. So that's pretty much what the awareness revolution is about. It's about raising awareness to change the world. And eventually we're going to hit the point of critical mass where so many people know these things that I'm going to be covering that the world is just going to change. And we're almost there. When I started writing the book 8 years ago, the world was totally different than what it is now. There's been so much change just since I wrote that. Like, for example, I started writing on the war on drugs and everything. And I don't know, it was really controversial at the time. But since then, look, states are passing laws to let people smoke marijuana, whether it's for recreational purposes or medicinal purposes. This is all changed since I started writing it. More and more people are getting interested in health and healthy food and becoming aware of GMOs. And when I first started writing this and was thinking about the awareness revolution, it was not cool yet. And it just seems like since I started writing about it, it has become the cool thing. So I didn't start the awareness revolution. I just coined the phrase. I actually got the phrase from Gerald Celente. I was listening to him one day, and he said that, and I was trying to come up with a name for what I was trying to convey, and it just clicked. It was a light bulb. So I didn't start it. I just coined the phrase, and I'm joining it, and I'm inviting you all to join it. And even if you don't post your own content, just simply talking about the things that you learn through the recommendations that I give for other people's lectures and my podcast, everything. By talking about that stuff, you are playing your role, and it's a huge role, in the awareness revolution. It will be simple conversations like this and like the conversations that you have with your friends and your family at dinner or at the bar or whatever. It's going to be those conversations that will change the world. And one day, we're going to be looking back at this huge transition. We're at the crossroads Humanity is at a crossroads in history where I believe at the most important time in history. And one day we're going to be looking back, telling our children, our grandchildren about what we did during these times. And your conversations of waking people up, making them aware, are going to be the most important thing that is going to drive humanity where it needs to go. So we are going to empower ourselves with this information and then empower others. And then eventually we're going to hit critical mass. Enough people will have raised their awareness on these things that I'll be uncovering in future episodes. And eventually we're going to hit critical mass of the awareness revolution, and we will change the world for the better. And it's happening every single day. So let me just cover a little bit about the future episodes, just so you can get an idea for some of the content that we'll be covering. I'm going to start off with the first 4 podcasts being based on my ebook. It's the first and only ebook I've covered so far, or I've published, and it's on the 4 keys of natural health. The ebook is called Gifts from Nature, available on my website, theawarenessrevolution.com. And the 4 keys to natural health are soil, water, air, and the sun. And the great thing is that Mother Nature doesn't charge us for these things. We need these elements of nature to stay healthy. So without them, we become unhealthy. So people are like, well, food can't cure cancer and all this other stuff. The sun can't. Dude, it doesn't make sense. But when you realize that, disease is caused by a disconnection from nature, then it's easy to understand why reconnecting with nature could reverse that. So, the first 4 episodes teach you so many ways to improve your health without costing you anything in most cases, because Mother Nature doesn't charge. That's why we aren't taught this, because there's no financial incentive for people to teach it to us. And I'm teaching it to you for free. And though this is an audio podcast, I'm also doing a video version. And for example, on those first 4 podcasts, I'll be looking over the actual PDF, which is a colorful version of the book, so you can actually see the ebook as I'm talking about it. Besides that, I'll be covering other future ebooks that I'll publish, such as one on the war on drugs, the educational system, more stuff on health like fasting, raw food diet, and other topics that are going to be discussed in the Awareness Revolution. I'll be covering stuff about the book. I'll be covering fluoride, vaccines, internet marketing. So I've got a lot of different content coming. I'm going to be doing a lot of episodes myself, but I'll also be inviting other guests on my podcast. So I'm going to have a lot of great guests. I've already got a lot of ideas because I follow these people every single day. So I'm going to get these same people that I learned from, invite them on my podcast, so that way you can learn from them too. And there's so many great people to learn from. I'm just excited to get them on here, because you're going to be thrilled with all of the stuff that I've learned over the years. Also, I want to let you know that each podcast will have its own page on my website, and they'll all be numbered. So it'll just be my website, theawarenessrevolution.com / and then the number of the podcast. So this will be 0. So the 4th podcast episode will be theawarenessrevolution.com / 4, and that's just the number 4. I invite you to join the Facebook group, The Awareness Revolution. I just started it. You can get involved by joining the newsletter, like in my Facebook page, on social media, but that's not really that effective because I've got to pay for people to see it. So I don't really, that's not really the thing right now. That's why it would be much more um, intimate and engaging to join the Facebook group, so that way we can all communicate together and I don't have to pay in order to have you see my posts. Also, if you want to help me contribute to the content, I have a Patreon page. If you don't know about Patreon, you should check it out. It's a cool platform for you to contribute to other people's products that they produce, and you get cool rewards for doing so. That's spelled Patreon.com, and then my URL to find our page is patreon.com/awareness revolution. And I will leave a link to that in the show notes at theawarenessrevolution.com/0. So that would be a cool way. There's going to be exclusive content on there that won't be anywhere else. I've already got a post for the contributors that contribute $10 or more per month that gives you my secret source of healing. And that one tip alone is one of the best things that you can do for your health. And I give you a source of where to find it that is so cheap that it will, just buying one purchase of it will pay for years of supporting me on Patreon. And you don't have to give $10 per month. You can become a patron for as low as $1 per month. So you might want to check that out. Another cool thing I want to mention, if you want to get involved, become part of the community, is steemit.com. I think Steemit has a lot of potential because you make a cryptocurrency called Steem by engaging in the content. So it's kind of like a Facebook, but Facebook doesn't pay you as they build its, as Facebook was building $1 billion company, you get nothing in return for your engagement. Whereas on Steemit, when you upvote a post, when you comment, or when you post yourself, you can actually earn this cryptocurrency called Steem. So I've recently joined that, and it's really a lot more, tailored to free thinking people. For lack of a better phrase, I'm trying to figure out how to word it, but just the type of person that's on it is different than the people that's on Facebook. Facebook is really mainstream, where it's really people that are awake and aware on Steemit. So I just recently started that out. So you might want to check out steemit.com. That's STEEMIT.com/a revolution if you want to check out our page. And by listening to podcasts like these, joining these communities, these groups, connecting with like-minded people, having these conversations, that is what's going to change the world. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please take a minute to review our podcast on iTunes so that way other people can find it. And have yourself a wonderful day.